Under the same roof, we share the love, embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.
My. We have 31 people in the building already. I'm loving it, every moment of it. Good evening. Tonight, we're digging into the stories that mainstream refuses to talk about. The mainstream media is not covering these stories. Why so? That's what everybody wants to know. What does Bill Clinton gain by refusing to testify? Why is Iran signaling aggression at a moment when America is looking inward? Why are transportation companies in Minnesota suddenly becoming a fraud spectacle? And what is the future for Luigi Mangione's federal case? Well, we're going to get to it tonight, folks. This is where the information becomes insight, where the tires meet the road. Yes, indeed. But tonight, I can't go forward without introducing the star of the show, folks. You know who she is. She goes by the name of Candace Kelly. I'm so amazed to bring her on. Candace, how are
Hey,
you?
hey, good to see you. I don't know if I'm the star of the show, but I am here tonight and glad to be here. A lot of news going on, as you said.
Absolutely. In fact, did you hear that there's an assassination request on Donald Trump's life?
Yeah, there was this post that was made from what I understand. The post had him in Pennsylvania. As many people know, there was an assassination attempt when he was in Pennsylvania at a rally. And the quote apparently was, "We won't miss this time." And that was supposed to have come from Iran. So, what does that really say, Mel? I think
Ooh.
that, yeah, exactly. Some of it you just can't put into words. This is the level on which we are working when it comes to dealing with other countries, trying to find a medium, a decent medium, in order for things to carry on without people dying. But I think what's happened is that push has come to shove with a lot of people in terms of how they see the United States positioning itself, not just within its country, because that's terrible in terms of ICE, but just around the world. And people and countries are not taking it to a point where something like this would be posted. You would have to say that this is somebody rising to the occasion of something that they see has to be met in this way. Otherwise, if they didn't think that they were supposed to come to the junkyard with a knife and a dog, they wouldn't have, but they saw that as necessary. Have a knife, have a dog, have a gun, have everything, have a threat, pull up the assassination attempt picture and say, "We're going to get you if we do it our way." So we're just looking at the way that mostly men are dealing with each other in order to handle the problems of international affairs.
You know, one of our reporters by the name of Eric Nickerson, he sent me the story hot off the press tonight. So I listened to it carefully, but you know what? I sent him back a question. I says, you know what? I wonder, are they in a way taking any type of responsibility for the first attempt? You know, there's no proof of that. But when I
Right.
read it, I'm like, what does this mean? Are you saying, and the guy, he actually was taken out during the attempt, so we don't know fully what's happening. It's kind of gone ghost at this point, but it just made me wonder. And usually I'm not on the conspiracy side, but my mind went there. I'm like, what does this mean? The statement that they're making. So let's get to it. I
Mhm.
want to show you the video and then I'll get some of your commentary on it. All right. Okay.
Well, here we are again. I don't think it's any
Actually,
secret.
wrong video. Let's see. Here we go.
We are following some breaking news out of Iran after Iran threatens President Trump. Take a look at this social media post right now, sharing more details of this threat. This is from the New York Post saying Iran issues sickening assassination threat against Trump. Quote, this time it will not miss the target. And they also shared a photo of one of the assassination attempts against President Trump. All of this coming as protests continue to escalate in Iran. These are some file video of some of these protests in which reportedly hundreds, if not thousands of people have been killed. Meantime, Iran's judiciary head has signaled earlier today there would be fast.
Candace, it doesn't look good. What do you think about this?
Yeah, it doesn't look good. And might we add to that it was just a sloppy post because like you said, it leaves so many open-ended questions about the first assassination attempt. Did they have anything to do with it? It was just a sloppy, quick post. But might I add that many times when the president posts, they are sloppy and they are also quick. So I think that we're kind of using the same weapons in this whole process. And people are going to infer and read between the lines and read the implications of it anyway. So even if they were clear and say, though we were not responsible for the assassination attempt, if we tried it this time around, if they even there still be conspiracy theories. So that's just the state of media in terms of where we are and how people are receiving information. But pretty messy, very, very messy. And who knows, Mel? They may have wanted to keep it open so that everybody would think. And by the way, we were potentially responsible for that first attempt.
Yeah, a lot of people are actually saying that. Let's keep
Yeah.
going.
Trials and executions ahead for suspects detained in these nationwide protests, despite warnings from President Trump that the U.S. may take military action over the killing of peaceful demonstrators. Those comments came as activists warn that hangings of those detained could come soon. The security force crackdown on the demonstrations has killed at least 2,500 people. That's according to the U.S.-based human rights.
Wow, that's a lot of folks, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of people. And certainly there's a reason to have alarm, and certainly there's a reason to be concerned about what's going on, because as we know, when we look at the international politics, whether it's Greenland, whether it's Iran, whether it's Russia, whether it's any other country, whether it's all the countries that are now in question in terms of whether or not you'll be received in this country. They named about 75 where they're not going to be collecting information for people to come in here, like Jamaica and Ethiopia. But that being said, we're talking about things on an international level, which is why this is of such concern, because we're not just dealing with the Minnesotas, right? We're not just dealing with Chicago. We are dealing on an international front right now. And that's why everybody should be concerned. What's that song that Lauryn Hill has? Everything is everything. I mean, it really is. Everything is everything today. If it's going on abroad, it's going on here. It's got some type of an implication. If it's going on in Minnesota, it's got some implication abroad too. Everything is inclusive, which is why it's just kind of the perfect storm of international, statewide level and in your backyard level events. I grew up in Morristown, New Jersey, and they had a raid there this past weekend. About 6 or 7 people got picked up. So it is happening in our backyards, literally. Just what you're seeing on the news, it's not that far away from you. So that's what I think about when I think about Iran, and I think about anything that happens on an international level. It's all intertwined to what's going on right in your backyard right now. Because where are they sending these people back to who are being picked up by ICE? They're sending them to different countries of various choices with no rhyme or reason, right? So with that in mind, once again, it's just kind of an all-inclusive, everything is everything, that the world of politics that we are in, it's so big. It's so massive.
One thing about the president, he seems to not like the idea of people getting murdered and having their innocent lives taken. What do you think about that?
Well, he again, that's where international politics, plays into local politics, because what's happening in Minnesota, what's happening to, there was a 20-year-old who permanently has lost his eyesight because of the way that he was detained by ICE officials. I mean, you can just turn on any video right now. Someone's live streaming someone who's being pulled from their car. So while he may say, I am very concerned about the well-being of people and what happens to their bodies, and we're looking at the humanitarian effect of this, it's kind of nonsensical, because right here in Minnesota, or right here in New Jersey, in Morristown, where I live, or grew up, and right where you are in New York City, people's humanitarian needs are not being respected or met. So it doesn't make any sense. But again, that is how the president often functions. It doesn't make sense to leave people kind of confused and kind of trying to figure it out so that he can do other things. I mean, that's often how he works. Does things right under our noses while chaos is created. And we're figuring out the chaos and the explosions and trying to remove the shard from our feet and legs. And in the meantime, he's doing other things. So that's what I think about his assessment of. I'm really caring about these people, and whether or not they're harmed. That doesn't make any sense. Especially what we're seeing today.
Okay, we'd like to ask everyone to take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Two Doubled says, why are people having problems with illegals being deported?
Well, I mean, the problem with illegals being deported is that, well, number one, a lot of them are not illegal. What happens, and I'm wondering maybe if this commenter can explain, do they have all their proper ID right now? Do they know what to show? Does anybody know what to show in order to keep an ICE agent in their place, someone who's masked, right? And show them that you are in fact a citizen. Is it your passport? Hasn't been. People have been showing that. Is it your license? Hasn't been. Nope. Phone bill? Nope. There's nothing. There are no rules. There are no guidelines. There are no regulations. No one said, hey, Mel, make sure that when you go out there, right, from a government perspective, have this piece of identification, this piece, and then you can go home. It's arbitrary. There's no due process involved. And your rights are stripped away as soon as the ICE agent comes up to you. Why? Because they're masked. And these are people that we pay for as taxpayers, and we can't see who they are. How do we know who they are? This isn't a world where you want to be playing with that. So it's not a question of what happens and why does it matter? Illegal should go home. The process is wrong. I mean, there are people, aside from that, let's think about the court system. Yeah, you have a defendant, let's say any case, should be in jail. There's still a process that they're afforded, even if they're guilty. But that's the process. Innocent till proven guilty. There is no due process. Think about those two words, a process that is due to someone so that they can maintain their rights that they are guaranteed by the Constitution. There's no process when you're trying to make a left-hand turn on the corner of, Elm and Main, and an ICE agent comes to you masked and rips you out of your car, and your kids are in the back. There's no due process. That's the problem.
Right. I knew Donald Trump's brother, and I have a lot of inside stories in regards to the father. He actually passed away a couple of years ago, but he lived upstate New York by me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have always followed the family pretty closely as far as the facts. I'm starting to think, though, especially with my research on the Roman Empire, that Donald Trump is trying to turn the Americas like an empire, where we're actually taking over all these other lands, right, for the benefit or for gain to probably solve some of the trillions of dollars that we are in debt. What do you think about it when you see Venezuela, you see
Yeah.
Greenland, you see what's happening with America bombing in Africa in the name of Christianity? Do you think that there's some truth to that?
Yeah, this is something that we've seen in history in terms of certain countries like the United Kingdom going into other countries, I mean hundreds of them, and saying, "No, now you are under our dominion." This smells of the same thing, and the reasoning is the same thing. The reasoning that various empires will normally say, "Hey, let's just go and take this country." They will normally say it's for safety and also to get resources, and also because they believe it's their innate right to kind of take what's theirs. They have a superior position. And this is exactly what Trump is doing in terms of Greenland, for example. Greenland is not for sale. Somebody cannot, I mean, unless you have, government eminent domain, right? No one, if my house isn't for sale, someone can't just come and take it. That just is not how the process works. But this is how we see the United States acting when it comes to taking other countries. Now, Venezuela was kind of a different story in that we've got drugs involved and we've got, gangs involved potentially. Here we're talking about Greenland and what's the goal there? Resources, as you said, trying to get money. Another argument is that, with the climate change, Greenland is going to open up. It's going to melt a little bit. It's going to create new traffic ways and new throughways that the United States wants to have a dominion over. But all of it has to do with not just being sovereign as the United States of America, but sovereign as a United States of America that oversees and is recognized by the world. And so that is what we see now. Again, everything is everything. He's doing everything for the United States, or he's calling it that, but he's going on an international level in order to make sure that his voice is heard. But again, there's no process. And he has put some of these markers and procedures in place in terms of saying this is what's going to happen. But really, he doesn't even have the power to do that. You need a lot of you need a lot more than him just saying, we're going to take it over and here we come. Let's have a seat. That's not how it happens. Even if you do take over a country, it's not how it happens, which is why Venezuela is still a point of contention, right? Because no one knows whether or not that should have happened or not in terms of the legality.
Absolutely. Well, today there's breaking news in regards to Greenland and Denmark, as far as they had a meeting with the United States, and apparently it did not go as well as they wanted to. I just wanted to share this with you. Perhaps we can chat about it and see if we could find some sort of reasoning here.
I think that our meeting today and our commitment to find the right path is something that gives us to be able to see forward. And by saying that, I also committed on what Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen already said. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And then I think we can take a few questions. Tom from BBC. Yes.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Just first of all, you talked about the working group. Can you just give us a sense of what this means now? So what has actually been agreed you're going to do next, despite this, as you described it, fundamental disagreement? And you mentioned the dog slaves. In terms of what you've announced in terms of beefing up security in the Arctic around Greenland, when you hear that kind of language from President Trump about amounting to no more than 2 dog slaves, how does that make you feel?
Well, that's actually quite a few questions at the same time.
Now, before we get started, my argument is even when Donald Trump took office, I think they had a plan, because he came to this administration the second time around with a whole dream team, right? Mm-hmm. And I think Venezuela was on the ticket. I think Greenland's on the ticket. I think other parts of the world are on the ticket. And they're just coming up with rules to just, appease the American people as to trying to justify why we want to take over this land. Kind of like the Roman Empire years ago, just taking over and like a Pac-Man style, taking everything. So I just want to show you how they're going to lay this out in this video.
Yeah.
Well, I have known the president for quite a while, also in my former capacity as prime minister in Denmark, and I know his approach. But I must say, and even though he addressed things quite differently from what I would have done myself, there's also always a bit of truth in what he's saying, not about the dog slaves. Well, we also have dog slaves to our special forces. That's the way to, otherwise you couldn't come around in the northern part of Greenland. But I must say that, of course, we share to some extent his concerns. There is definitely a new security situation in the Arctic and the high north. All of us, transatlantic, took the peace dividend years ago, and we have the vision of keeping Arctic as a low-tension region. That's probably also why U.S. Themselves have decided to have a much softer footprint in Greenland. During the Cold War, at some stage, they had 17 different military installations and military bases. Now they only have one. They had like 10,000 personnel in Greenland. Now they have around 200. That's not our decision. That's a U.S. decision. And now the situation is entirely different. And of course, we have to respond to this. The big difference is whether that must lead to a situation where U.S. acquire Greenland, and that is absolutely not.
So he's kind of setting the stage here. The Greenland position is that, hey, you can increase, if you're concerned about security, increase the military like the numbers you had previously, but our country has a different plan. What do you think?
Yeah, well, and their country should have a different plan because their planning didn't include anything that the United States had in mind because they shouldn't have been on the radar, and they weren't. Again, this is, as you said, like the Roman Empire, somebody overstepping their boundaries without going through any processes to steal a country. I mean, they're not going to leave the table without putting up a really, really good fight. And that's what we are seeing. Now they're saying, all right, you know what? You are coming to the table with certain plans that you have. Let's try to make sense of this. All right. Well, if you think that, then, why not just bring in more military? Or if you think that, well, then why not do that? They are leading the United States to kind of some nonsensical waters so that they can see it themselves and understand that so far it doesn't quite make sense. The other thing I wanted to point out really quickly is that I see a lot of comments about due process and illegal aliens. If you are in the United States jurisdiction, you are awarded and afforded due process as guaranteed by the 5th and 14th Amendment. Just want to make sure people understand how that works and they can, go look it up for themselves. But all right.
Okay, thank you.
Necessary. I mean, we have the long-lasting diplomatic relation, the longest lasting diplomatic relation with U.S. that any U.S. ally has, 225 years in a row.
Wow.
And we have a perfect framework which could be used. And therefore, to answer your question, even though we wasn't so successful that we reached, a conclusion where our American colleagues said, "Oh, sorry, it was a totally misunderstanding. We give up on our ambitions." There's clearly a disagreement. We agreed that it makes sense to try to sit down on a high level to explore whether there is possibilities to accommodate the concerns of the president, while we at the same time respect the red lines of the Kingdom of Denmark. So this is the work we will start. Whether that is doable, I don't know. I hope, and I would like to express that it could take, down the temperature. We have now had like 13 months with this ongoing discussions in social media, and this is actually the very first time where we could sit down at a top political level to discuss it. And it was a great opportunity also for Vivian and I.
I'm starting to get the impression that Donald Trump has put the heat on their necks. You can just see it. It's almost like they're at a funeral, the way they're talking and the way their shoulders are down, right?
Yeah, they have gotten the brunt of a lot of, maybe some touch football so far. Maybe not the tackle football yet, but they definitely feel the sting of what is ahead. They definitely know what the plan is. And what they're doing is they're using the press, which they should. And maybe that makes sense. Anybody would use the press to get out ahead and make their argument that, hey, what it seems like they're saying is, hey, wait, before you do anything, first of all, you got to go through the Kingdom of Denmark, because Denmark oversees Greenland, even though Greenland has its own autonomy and foreign policies and things of that nature. So there are kind of some steps that the United States would have to go through first and foremost. But secondly, they have heard about the steps that the president wants to take, and they're kindly saying, well, okay, we hear you, but here's some alternatives. We could do this and we could do that. does it have to be this full throttle thing that they're doing? I see them as getting ahead of it, but definitely, as you said, with a little fear and a little trepidation there.
Absolutely. Okay, let's keep moving.
To go up against the narrative, because it is not a true narrative that we have, Chinese warships all around the place. According to our intelligence, we haven't had a Chinese warship in Greenland for a decade or so.
So that's the point. This is the moment I was waiting for. Do you hear how they're contradicting Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Donald
Yeah.
Trump says the ships are nigh and Russia and China is all around, creeping in, is dangerous, and they say it's been a decade.
Yeah. Yeah. They are really politely calling him out. And I think that's a very good approach. One thing you don't want to do is get anybody mad who's trying to take over you and does have the power and money and wherewithal to do so. They're taking a very nice approach to saying, hey, you said this, but actually it's this. I like what I'm seeing so far in terms of the fact that if they want to maintain their own sovereignty, they're going to, try nice first and see what happens. I don't know how long that will last because we know who we're dealing with, but they're at least trying to gingerly lead the United States and the presidents to some waters of reasonableness. You're saying this is going on, but that's actually not the case. They're being very, very kind. Mel, we'll see how long that lasts. I mean, eventually, don't you think they'll have to kind of change their tune a little bit because it's not going to stop here?
Absolutely. In fact, in this conversation, they're going to break down what the U.S. said at this meeting. Let's check it out.
So from that perspective, it was a very constructive meeting. As I said, frank discussion among equal partners, and now at least we have to give it a try. Do you want to add anything?
No, I think it's very important to say it again that how important it is from our side to strengthen our cooperation with the United States. But that doesn't mean that we want to be owned by United States. But as allies, how we can strengthen our cooperation, it's all our interest.
Yes, Kim.
Yeah, thank you very much. Of course, I would like to ask this question in Danish, but let me do it.
She says that doesn't mean we want to be owned by them.
Right. She said, wait a minute now. We can do some things, but you don't have to own us. We can work together. We can be collaborative. We're allies, like she said. Let's move forward on that proposition. But again, getting ahead of it, I see exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's no mistake that it's happening in Venezuela, Greenland. You see some bombs dropping over in Africa, and then you hear Donald Trump says, "Oh, we're going to be sending in corporations to make a lot of money in Africa," right after the bombs drop, right?
Exactly. And that was very strategic. And of course, the order, there was Venezuela, right? Because those were reasons that more people would be inclined to buy into. Do we want drugs in America? No. Do we know that Venezuela may be potentially where a lot of this is generating from? Yes. Was this a fair election with Maduro? Maybe not. So all of those things, there were a lot of buy-ins and co-signing that people could naturally do. They did that first to show the power, and now with Greenland, they're saying, "Hey, you can see what we can do, right? We actually can do that to you." So that was very strategic. The order in which they started to take over countries, if you will.
In fact, I could hear her voice tremoring. Let's
Absolutely.
Yeah, something else. Okay.
In English here,
Yes.
because of our colleagues here. Do you see any compromise ahead of you? You said it a little bit. Could you elaborate a little on the possible compromise that there would be between the president's wish to acquire Greenland or have control of Greenland and
The reporter is saying, do you see any compromise with Donald Trump, basically?
the red lines that the Kingdom of Denmark has got right now? And if you also can tell us just a little bit about the approach that the Americans had to this meeting, what was their primary goal as you see it?
Guys, take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. I see a lot of people talking about Clinton. We'll be talking about Clinton and Hillary next. Thanks.
Was that to reach that end goal, or was it an open discussion of how do we solve the security situation in the Arctic?
Well, first of all, I don't think this is the proper place to elaborate on what could be a compromise. The whole idea and the reason why we asked for this meeting was to turn public debate in a very, black and white kind of setting into a discussion where there's room for nuances. And therefore, I'm pleased, even though we do not agree whether this is doable, while we at the same time should respect the kingdom's red lines, at least it is productive to start discussions at a high level. And then we have to see whether we will be successful or not. I would say, and that is probably in comparison to some of the public debate, that the meeting took place in a very constructive atmosphere, where we also had, as I said, the opportunity to at least challenge the narrative presented by the American president. And I think that is
Okay, so pay attention. This is where he's going to say it.
necessity if we want to have a proper debate. It was basically about security. I mean, and as I said, even though there's not an instant threat from China and Russia, at least not a threat we can't accommodate. For instance, Chinese investments, we have avoided that due to close cooperation between Greenland and Denmark. When you saw, like 10 years ago, the Belt and Road Initiative and the idea of Chinese investments in infrastructure in Greenland, we avoided that. So there's no, Chinese present in Greenland, but there's a concern. Will that be the case in like a 10 or 20 years from now? It will not, because our Greenlandic friends have introduced investment screening schemes, etc. And Denmark, is by all means on the right side of history. And therefore, we will also continue to do what we already have done. We have been stepping up. We have allocated almost $15 billion within just the last couple of years to capabilities in the high north. We have been pushing among the Arctic NATO states for a bigger NATO engagement. Honestly speaking, and now I can only point fingers at the former American administration, US has historically been a bit reluctant. Hopefully that will change now. There's a dialogue within the NATO framework, and we want to step up. And hopefully that could also accommodate some of the president's concern. But it's not that I'm now, saying everything is solved. It's not solved. We didn't manage, but and honestly speaking, I didn't believe that was doable. We didn't manage to change the American position. It's clear that the president.
There you go. They weren't able to change the position, right?
Yeah, and clearly that was their goal. I mean, just imagine on kind of a micro level, somebody wants your house. And I can remember getting letters in the past, houses that I've owned, and people will write you a letter. Hi, I'm very interested in buying your house. And it felt like kind of an affront. Like, I'm not even selling it. Why are you leaving this letter in my box? I mean, that's kind of obviously to multiply that by 10,000. That's the level that we're at now. They're just minding their own business. They're not selling Greenland. And then all of a sudden someone comes and says, I want it. I'm going to take it. And it belongs to me. I mean, how scary that must be as a country. And just how time consuming it must be in order to do what they're doing now. Sit down, try to make sense, try to convince the other person not to buy you. And it's not even working yet. So this is only the beginning of their process.
So they spent all that time with the U.S. in this big meeting and walked away with, listen, you're going to give us this land the easy way, or Donald Trump says if you play around, it's going to be the hard way.
Yeah. And it also kind of smells very, anti, original peoples right, that we've dealt with in this country, that you are taking land from the Indians, or you're taking land if the United Kingdom, you're taking land if you're the Roman Empire, completely disregarding indigenous peoples, people who came there before you, and people who have the right in terms of ownership to that land to actually sell it to you without you jumping in and saying, I just want to take it because I feel that position of superiority. And that is what is going on here.
We're living in a modern day Roman Empire. That's all I can tell you. And it's good to not be on the opposing end of this administration. That's all I
Amen.
can say. You know, it would be fear inspiring. All right, so let's get to Clinton and see why he was beating around the bush. All right, let's see.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton joined her husband in defying a bipartisan lawful congressional subpoena to show up today. I think what's most disappointing to the Oversight Committee is the fact that we have, in good faith, negotiated with the Clintons' attorneys for 5 months. Throughout the past 5 months, they've implied to us they were trying to make a date work. In fact, the last day.
Well, you know what my grandmother used to say? She said, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip, right?
I tell you.
The Clintons are not coming. In fact, Kenneth in the audience says they should also make Trump testify too. So we're having it both ways here. But the Clinton says no. What do you think?
Well, I mean, we just talked about L.A. Reid the other day, kind of at the last minute, said, I'll go ahead and settle. At the last minute, they can do exactly what they want to do. If they want to refuse to testify and refuse a subpoena, they can. Their arguments are that this is just a fishing expedition to try to get them to come in front of, some type of hearing committee and really embarrass them when they're saying, we don't have anything to do with this. We don't know anything about this. There's actually no separation of powers, which is what they have said, that this is kind of more of executive coming into the congressional branch and trying to manage things when we're out of it. And they actually can say, I am going to refuse to sit, even if it is a subpoena. Now, this does open up the doors to some type of criminal charge on their end. If you think of Steve Bannon, that's what happened to him. So it's not over. At this point, they're just saying we're not going to sit for it. But that doesn't mean that those wheels are not still turning. And they're attorneys. They've been involved. He was president of the United States, for goodness sakes. She was secretary, of state. They know exactly what they're doing. And this is indeed one of the options available to them.
All right, very good. Now, from being in court, you and I, we've covered quite a few cases together already, right?
Yes.
You know how this is going to play out if it gets too deep into the waters. They pull you into court or before the committee. They put up that picture of Bill Clinton in the hot tub.
There you go.
A female that appears to be nude. At least that's what they're saying in the media, right?
Yeah.
And they don't just say, hey, what's this about? They say, oh, okay, so what were you wearing? Under the water? It gets to be uncomfortable in that courtroom, and then they start asking about the female. Who was she? What does she have on? And so forth and so on. So it's not an easy hearing to go to say the least, right?
Yeah. And again, just to piggyback off L.A. Reid, that's the reason he shut that down, because once you open up those doors, you get into all the background information. The Clintons don't want that either. They don't want to take they're not taking the stand, but they don't want to testify because it's going to open up all those doors, open up all those questions. And we're talking it's going to be, everyone will be able to see it. It's not going to be like federal court where cameras aren't in the classroom. If they testify, they're going to be testifying in front of a very live and huge audience. And once you open up that Pandora's box, you can go anywhere that you want in terms of their past, anything that might be connected to this. They're not going to go through that. Look at their ages too. They're not going to physically put themselves through that. And I think their biggest and key argument is that what are they going to learn from them? Just that he was in pictures with Jeffrey Epstein? Well, that doesn't do anything in terms of this particular case.
Okay, let's get back to it.
They notified us 3 days beforehand, said that they would love to come, but they have a funeral to attend, and we have bent over backwards to try to schedule the Clinton. No, I'm still talking. I'm still talking. I'm still talking. Go ahead. Hey, get him out of here. You're not even a reporter. Get out of here. So here's the situation. We're going to hold both Clintons in criminal contempt of Congress. We believe that because this subpoena was issued in a bipartisan fashion, the Democrats acted the day that the subpoenas were voted on in the subcommittee like they wanted the Clintons to come, because they at that time, if you go back, they were wanting me to subpoena.
So we're starting to shape up like Steve Bannon and Navarro in regards to this contempt, right?
And no, it definitely is. And again, the Clintons know this. Here's the other thing to keep in mind, that Epstein, he was someone who was involved in and managed very, very high yielding accounts for his billionaire friends in various different ways. I mean, this was a guy who was on Wall Street. And yes, there are records of Bill Clinton being on his plane 25 times, but it could have been for so many reasons. And I think that's what they're saying. Whatever I didn't have anything to do with what you're talking about. You have not justified that my wife and I, or my husband and I, need to come down and open up our whole lives from, 20, 30 years ago in this process. That's what they're saying. And I'm not saying that 25 times on this plane is a little. That's a lot. I mean, there was some business going on. Could have been any business. I don't know. They're saying you can't connect the dots in a way that makes us some type of, some criminal implication that we're involved in what you're trying to do in terms of Epstein and pedophilia.
Tough times. All
Yeah.
right. So I was in court on Friday for Luigi Mangione for the federal case. So have your way and ask any question you want.
Yeah. So tell me, I think a lot of people are really interested about what is going on in terms of the latest, especially with the death penalty, and what are some of the next steps? Because I understand that we probably will get to a case, whether it's federal or state, before the end of the year.
You and I, we sat in court. We heard the different testimonies in regards to the officers that came in. They were cross-examined by Karen Agnifilo, right? We saw it.
Yes.
Well, this is different. This judge, I believe it's the same judge that I saw when I covered Kendrick Lamar and Drake's case. Same judge, I believe, right? Pretty young judge, probably in her 40s or what have you. But she's not having the hearing. She doesn't really want any parts of having the whole fanfare of having those officers trail in and ask them questions, because they based it on one point. They said at the end of the day, right, the warrant was pulled. And when you pull the warrant, they itemize everything that's in his possession, right? The other point that they made is when a person is arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
She pulled out the protocol, and it basically says when a person is taken to the precinct, into the jail, they itemize and inventory everything that the person possessed. So putting those two together, they were going to find a gun. They were going to find a journal. They were going to find these items anyway. So that was her argument. So she's like, the prosecution is not really discussing McDonald's. We don't need to go through what he was eating and what time you went through the bag, because they did eventually pull that warrant, and that's what they're going to base this on.
I see. So there felt more of a definitive answer there.
Yeah. Avoiding all the hoopla that we saw at the state level.
Right. And that was 3 weeks of hoopla, right? That was a long time.
3 weeks of traveling back and forth, when she says it's not necessary for them to make their case. And I think that might come back as the order, could come back as the order in the state case too. I mean, the way she broke it down,
I know that being in the courtroom when we're around judges and the prosecutors and the defense team, you get a sense of how they're feeling about their case, the days when they're really emboldened and the days when they really feel like, yeah, we're doing well. What was your sense the last time you were in court of kind of which way things were swaying?
In the state case, I kind of felt like the judge was trying to give it a try, but it's kind of like one of those things with Diddy's case. Once you saw the Cassie's video, You know,
Mm.
like if he was on trial for domestic violence,
Yeah.
you can't get around it. You saw him kicking and everything. So in this particular case, you kind of see him wearing the same garb that he they say assassinated Brian Thompson in the street. Then
Yes.
when he flirts with the female, he pulls down, shows his face. So they tying him together real tight. But in the federal case, this judge seems to be more lenient, but it's like she's like, "Oh, we got a video here. Like, what are we doing?"
Mm-hmm.
Now, I saw the defense look like they were taking on water in this particular federal case because he couldn't articulate why you needed a hearing when she laid out the basis of a warrant and also the Altoona, Pennsylvania guidelines of intaking a prisoner.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Real simple and to the point, and we were out of there. We were in court maybe 2 hours.
Yeah. Was there a big audience this time? A lot of supporters, a lot of fans. What was that looking like?
Humongous, yeah, a lot of people in comparison to the state trials. So I don't know if people woke up or because it's federal, you're getting more eyes on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I always wonder if this is something that time is going to make the interest go away, or do you think that matters? Because now this has happened a little over a year ago. By the time we get to any of these cases, it might be 2 years. Do you think there will be a frenzy?
I don't see a big frenzy. I do see probably more appeal once the trials start. But when I went to Maduro's, Nicolás Maduro's hearing conference or whatever you want to call it here in New York, I never saw that for Diddy or any other trial. It was so many people out there. It
I
was like a
heard that was
madhouse.
crazy.
And they
Now,
were
what?
fighting. Everything was going down. I was
Okay,
in the thick
so
of it.
we know that Sean Combs's case was also a madhouse, but what took this up?
That was like a baby. That was like a
Really?
baby trial. Yeah, compared to Nicolás Maduro and his wife, you couldn't
Mm,
even turn around. The courthouse was packed. I
really?
must have counted, I'm going lightly. I'd say I saw at least 150 different DEA officers alone.
Wow.
They
That is
were around the
amazing.
entire building, but outside you had Venezuelans and you also had Antifa, and then you had people just trying to be, rimshot type of journalists. But there was a lot of N-words floating around and yelling between the Venezuelans and
Wow.
Antifa. There was fighting, punching in the head. Police had to make everybody go away. It was getting out of control.
Wow.
It's
And
all
that,
on my live. Yeah, it's all on my live. I was right in the middle of it.
yeah, yeah. Everybody go check out Mel's live. Mel, you're always in the middle of it and always have the live going on. How often do you go live during the week? Because I know that's a really good way for people to catch up with what's going on in the
Every
legal
day.
world.
Every
Every
day at
day.
noon. Every day at noon. And we have 3 shows at night in regards to different topics: Calvin Johnson, Mama Flips, you. And then when the big stories hit, we'll break out you and Calvin. It's going to be a big hit, and Mama Flips too. So it'll be awesome.
All right. Yeah, yeah. No, it absolutely will be. So I guess the next time that we'll even hear anything from Luigi is when and what?
Well, they're trying to determine the trial date because if it's a regular trial, they were shooting for September. If
Okay.
it's a capital murder where his life is on the line,
Yeah.
the defense said they needed until January because they have special experts they need to have involved, and they're only available in January. So that's what they're trying to decipher at this point.
I see. And so we'll know better when it's determined whether or not this will be a capital punishment case in terms of the timeline.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. All that
And
makes
we've
sense.
reached our time. Oh my.
All right. Well, we covered a lot. There's always a lot going on, and it's been good to be here.
Awesome. Great to have you. We had a lot of great comments and people in the audience. It's always amazing. I just want to take one or two before we leave. Lou says because she sold her soul to the devil. I wonder who is that? Maybe Hillary Clinton?
You
But-
know what? Maybe I think that's the one female we spoke about tonight. Maybe.
And we'll take Wanda says, please stop calling immigrants illegal. They are from another country, not another planet. Big difference.
Yes, and agreed. And many times what will happen is that while we do a corrective process, sometimes you do say illegal because that's how other people refer to them So if I'm not clear on putting, quotation, marks, because that's how other people see them, my apologies for that.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. I look forward to next week, same time, same place, pretty much, right?
All right. Yes,
Maybe
indeed.
maybe next time we could kind of do a comparison as to how is it they're going after Bill Clinton when all the files have not been released. Maybe we'll lead with that next week.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one. A
All
lot
right.
there.
Thank you so much. I'll see you then.
All right.
Different voices, but the same song. Living a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the thing remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. The colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.